Well, hello and welcome to the Uncalled For. We have a really great show for you tonight. We're going to be covering quite a few topics. So I just want to say thank you to the panel for coming tonight. And I want to thank everyone in the chat for coming as well. I hope it's a good, healthy conversation that we can have about these things. And now I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Claire S. Bear. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you, Aimee. To start, I'd like to read something from an op-ed in the New York Times that was just recently posted that has to do with a problem in America that we're having, a serious problem, and I think you'll all relate to it. As the number of mass shootings in America continue to rise, gun control, a term used to describe a wide range of restrictions and measures aimed at controlling the use of firearms, remains at the center of heated discussions among proponents and opponents of stricter gun laws. To help understand that debate, its political and social implications, we should address some key questions on the subject. First of all, could gun control be effective? Throughout the world, mass shootings have frequently been met with a common response. Officials impose new restrictions on gun ownership. Mass shootings become rarer. Homicides and suicides tend to decrease also. After a British gunman killed 16 people in 1987, the country banned semi-automatic weapons, like the ones he had used. It did the same with most handguns after a school shooting in 1996. It now has one of the lowest gun-related death rates in the developed world. In Australia, a 1996 massacre prompted mandatory gun buyback, in which, by some estimates, as many as 1 million firearms were then melted into slag. The rate of mass shootings plummeted from one every 18 months to so far only one in the 26 years since. Only the United States, whose rate and severity of mass shootings is without parallel outside conflict zones, has so consistently refused to respond to those events with tightened gun laws. Several theories explain the number of shootings in the United States, like its unusually violent societal class and racial divides, or its shortcomings in providing mental health care. They have been debunked by research, but one variable remains: the astronomical number of guns in the country. Americans' gun homicide rate was 33 per 1 million people in 2009, far exceeding the average among developed countries. In Canada and Britain, it was 5 per million and 0.7 per million, respectively, which also corresponds with the differences in gun ownership. Americans sometimes see this as an expression of its deeper problems with crime, a notion ingrained in part by a series of films portraying urban gang violence in the early 90s. But the United States is not actually more prone to crime than other developed countries, according to a landmark 1999 study by Franklin Zimring and Gordon Hawkins of the University of California in Berkeley. Rather, they found in data that has since been repeatedly confirmed that American crime is simply more lethal. A New Yorker is just as likely to be robbed as a Londoner, for instance, but the New Yorker is 54 times more likely to be killed in the process. They concluded that the discrepancy, like so many other anomalies in American violence, came down to guns. More gun ownership corresponds with more gun murders across virtually every axis, among developed countries, among American states, among American towns and cities, and when controlling for crime rates. And gun control legislation tends to reduce gun murders, according to a recent analysis of 130 studies from 10 countries. This suggests that guns themselves cause the violence. And there is an article by Max Fisher and Josh Keller, Why Does the US Have So Many Mass Shootings in Research in Guns? That is the paper, and I'll extend the link. Every mass shooting is, in some sense, a fringe event, driven by one-off factors like the ideology or personal circumstance of the assailant. The risk is impossible to fully erase. Still, the record is clear and confirmed by reams of studies that have analyzed the effects of policies like Britain's and Australia's. When countries tighten gun control laws, it leads to fewer guns in private citizens' hands, which leads to less gun violence and to fewer mass shootings. Thank you, Aimee.
Thank you so much, Claire. That was brilliant and spot on.
Yep,
It
I'm
really
gonna
was.
post that research link in the paper in the chat for those that like to confirm. The paper itself is free, so from the article.
Exactly. Thank you so much. That was brilliant. And I do need to welcome Ali for welcome to the Shill Apprentice and welcome to the family. Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So, yes. And so back to that, we had for our first thing to look at, this was back on the 25th of January. As of the 25th of January, we had 40 mass shootings across the country just this year alone, starting with January 1st.
Wow.
And this is according to the Gun Violence Archive, which is putting 2023 on pace to have the most mass shootings at this point of any year on record. A total of 73 people were killed in them and 165 people injured. Again, this information was valid as of the 25th of January. So it wasn't, I think there might have been a couple more after this, but they've become so many of them that it's just become insane. It's become I can't keep track. It's coming to that point, and how many people have to go through these things and how many people have to be affected and worse, killed before we do something about this. It's just DKG.
Oh, sorry, I should unmute first. Yeah, it's kind of fascinating because even in America, every mass shooting does not hit the news. I mean, we had a shooting in the UK early this year, but if there is a shooting, I just mean someone got shot, it hits the news. But over here, we only hear about like a few of these mass shootings. They have to be big and important before they get addressed in the news over here. So God knows what it's like in America.
Exactly. So yeah,
there's
and
a map up on the there's a map up on the screen there, and I mean it's just dot. So
it's horrifying, absolutely horrifying. That's just right now, like that. What is it? Just
We're only a month
January.
in.
We're only 1 month in.
Not even a full month. And this was as of the 25th. We have a week left.
Right. Guaranteed, if it continues for the rest of the year, you won't even see the country. You'll just see the red blots. It will be covered in red.
Exactly.
And figuratively.
Now, I do see a pattern forming here. If you look at all those dots, they're all in the United States.
Well, yes. Yes, they are, which is exactly the topic. Why can't gun control be done in the United States? What's the problem? Like, why do you need a gun with those if that is the result?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I did have a good question in the chat as well, too. Facty was asking, hi, Facty, good to see you. What constitutes a mass shooting? And usually, from my understanding, I'm just going off the top of my head here, don't quote me, but I believe that that it involves 4 or more people that either get hurt or injured. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up, but I know that was a good question. So if anybody has any other insights onto that while I look that up, that would be, maybe we can figure that all out. So
yeah, most of the ones that we hear about are the ones that just go into a crowd or a public place with a gun, not knowing who their target is and not caring, just targeting everyone. They would be like the ones we hear about the most now. That's the ones hitting the news. But also we have multiple murders where people just go in with the idea of who they're going to get, like a whole family or a whole a bunch of people that
Right.
they actually have a beef with or something like that. We have that also. But I think you're right. As soon as it hits more than 4 injured and all with the weapon, that it is.
I think so too. I think that's what it is. Go ahead, Commander.
And let's not forget we have a wave of white supremacists targeting substations and trying to destroy the power grid. The Pacific Northwest, in Puget Sound area recently. We had one, I think, in the Carolinas. So they're actually having organized with that too, where the weapons are being used to target property.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I did find a definition, which is really good. And there was a tiny bit of stats on it. It was really cool. So let me get right back to that. A mass shooting is a crime in which an attacker kills or injures multiple individuals simultaneously. There is a lack of consensus, but most definitions include a minimum of 3 or 4 victims of gun violence, not including the shooter themselves, in a short period of time. Of course, it excludes warfare and often excludes instances of gang violence, armed robberies, and familicides. A New York Times study reported how outcomes of active shooter attacks varied with actions of the attacker, the police, 42% of total incidences, and bystanders, including a good guy with a gun outcome, and 5.1% of total incidences. So it sounds to me like the good guy with the gun usually only helps about 5% of the time. So yeah, the bystander, 9.7% subdued the attacker and 5.1% shot the attacker. So those are the outcomes. 26.1% the attacker fled and 16.6% the attacker killed themselves. So 22.6% the police shot the attacker and 7.6 they subdued. 3.5 the attacker surrenders. So those are interesting statistics right there as well.
They are. It's low.
Repo Sandman brings up a good point. One of the problems in the U.S. is that hundreds of thousands of guns are stolen every year, and they're used to commit crimes. So, this I can have a collection of assault rifles and handguns in my home thing. Well, sorry, but it's stats prove they just get stolen.
Well, and this has been brought up before, and I'll bring up an incident that happened near my town not too long ago. People need, I don't care if you like guns, if you own any. I live in a state where hunting is big, but what needs to happen is when you're not using your gun, you need to secure it. Please, for the love of God, secure those things. We had a toddler a couple years ago who shot both his parents because they left the gun loaded with a round chambered on their nightstand, and the toddler picked it up and shot his parents, playing with it while they were sleeping. Come on. I mean, this is also why guns are getting stolen too, because they're not secured. So when people break into your home, they're just laying out and about. What's going to happen?
And we have some legislation about how to secure those and the safe ways to do that and all. But what we do is we don't push back on the penalties for people that are found not to be taking care of them properly, because you get so much flack from the media and from larger corporations and paid money in to actually promote that. Any time you mention gun control, that conversation gets shut down. End of story. No reasonable discourse whatsoever. Even when you're talking reasonableness, I kind of agree. Ali made a point in the chat. Deers don't wear Kevlar. What do you need an AR-15 for?
Exactly.
Someone explain that to me. How is the right to bear arms and protect yourself? How does that translate to I need an automatic weapon that can fire thousands and hundreds of rounds? How does that translate to me? Like, you're not adding anything into that premise? Because I'm sure our founding fathers didn't think that you should be able to kill 1,000 people in 15 seconds. I'm sure they did.
Weren't they like musket type guns at that point in
Exactly.
history where
Yes,
it took
they
you
were.
it took you
Muzzle
forever
loaders.
to even reload it and shit?
Mhm.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know.
So if you're going to use that amendment, use the mentality of this is damn 2023 and get with it. Like, no, you got to expand on that concept. They did not mean you had a right to an AR-15. I'll bank on it. I will bank on it. They did not mean that.
Absolutely. And before I get to Commander, I have a good comment from Repo Sandman. Gun owners should be legally responsible if their gun is stolen and used in a crime, with some exceptions. It shows they don't value the safe handling of weapons, and that is
Agreed.
so true. That's perfect. Thank you, Repo Sandman. And on to Commander.
One thing about the conspiracies about, all the things that they're going to do if they take away your guns. The NRA was actually found to be taking a lot of money from Russia. And what Russia loves to do is just stir up strife, enmity, division, and violence in just about every country imaginable. So we need to deal with the conspiracy theories and the insecurities of why people are hoarding these things.
Mhm.
And in revolutionary Boston, you couldn't just carry this was under the Patriots. You couldn't just carry a loaded musket around with you. They didn't want people with loaded guns running around because it was a hotbed of tempers. I believe there were actually laws telling you how to carry around the guns at that time
Mhm.
because of the tempers.
Mhm. I agree, because that right to bear arms has nothing to do with gun ownership. Okay,
Right.
because like, why in fear are you stockpiling all these weapons? Why? So you can go against the law? Because that's
Yeah.
what it sounds like. That you actually want to use a law or use an amendment and not have any laws so that you can willfully, with force, do what you want instead. And that doesn't seem like a very patriotic or country themed thing, you know?
Mhm.
Like, it doesn't seem like you're actually thinking about the greater good of the whole country that way. Sounds like an
Yeah.
agenda for a bunch of a smaller group that thinks that's the only way they're going to get their way.
Right. And someone else had said something earlier too, which is true. The NRA is just too big, and and they've been trying to influence with their lobbying
Hmm.
and things like that, so that people now do believe that it's just an inalienable right. They
Hmm.
must have every single gun that they can absolutely have. Well, and if that's the case, I want my tank because it'd be really good because we're getting some snowstorms coming here. So,
Hmm.
it's but yeah, definitely and I think that's been a big influence on how it's interpreted now as opposed to back when it was first written. Go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, I'm just I wish I was more prepared about the lobbying thing, because I do recall, and I hope it is accurate. I will check it later. Well, quite a few years ago, when looking at the NRA lobbying, like Commander had mentioned, Russia, they found that several of the spokespeople for the NRA, not hired by the NRA, but that were on the tour and were given platforms to speak on gun control, or on the advocates for why we shouldn't have gun control in America,
Mhm.
had foreign ties, not just with Russia, but everywhere else. That it was actually to the point where here we had a tour of the NRA going around supporting their mission and lobbying with all congressmen, senators, like every politician they could. And we had all this outside influence. Now you tell me, why would other countries not want us to regulate, and things like that? Why would they not want us to regulate and all? Because they want all of this discourse here like that. They want they want all of this here like that, so that they could organize those groups to go against the authorities of the United States. It was so blatant when I saw that article. It's
Mhm.
quite a thing. So why don't they see it? And why is that allowed? Why is a lobbyist for the NRA allowed to be foreign entities?
I know.
Why are they even in the building? Who do you
Right.
think?
Why is
Yeah,
anybody like that
you,
lobbying the
yeah.
government of the United States?
Who do you think they're lobbying for? It ain't the. It's not only the NRA, that's for sure. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's like, some things just don't make sense to me. The lack of conversation is what irritates me the most.
Hobbs
Exactly.
Groove's got a good point here. It was the right to give civilians the right to protect themselves in a civil war without committing a crime by bearing arms.
Exactly.
Well put.
Absolutely.
But even now, you don't need an AR-15 to do that, do you?
Yeah, I think that it's such a broad-reaching statement that a little clarification isn't a bad thing. I just, I understand the pushback. You like to go and play with automatic weapons, and you've got a few right now, and you don't want them taken away from you. Well, okay, but in a situation where they get stolen from a lot of people and used in situations like this over and over and over again, sometimes we have to consider more than ourselves. It's like living in an apartment building. You can't buy a $5,000 stereo and just crank the thing up. You will be kicked out. There's always compromise in life. Why is this one so difficult? People are dying.
And we have legislation against assault weapons and the barrels, and actually those kits that you actually can turn other weapons into assault weapons, that they could shoot multiple rounds against what the original manufacturer had meant. They were selling kits that did that. So we got rid of all of that, and then it got reversed. But they're going to have to face the fact that the research is here. When there was tighter legislation on those, there was less. They're going to have to deal with that those things, it will help if they get rid of them. And there is legislation coming forward again on assault weapon bans. And we'll hope that it goes through. There's a couple of states working on it, but I don't know. I don't know if the federal one is going to make it through. Look at what we're dealing with. We're in a stymied Congress as it is. Like, it's just going to hit a wall. Even if it had total support, the thought that it would hit the wall is great there, because you can't. It's not even just a party issue. Like, people get paid to not vote on it. They just don't show up to vote, which is the most popular thing now. Instead of weighing in on it, they just don't vote.
Exactly, which we see the results of this past year. So there we go. So I'm going to go on to DKG Custom first, because he's first on my list. Go ahead, DKG.
Yeah, we were talking about sort of like electric vehicles the other night on the Friday show, and the governments are putting through legislations to clean up the air and make the air nice and breathable for everybody. Well, what's the point of the government keep forcing legislation like that, but you can still be blown away by someone driving by in a Tesla? The hypocrisy is ridiculous. It just doesn't make any fucking sense.
Here. Well said, because, right? You're worried about the air that we're going to breathe, but you're not worried about us breathing tomorrow. Not very much, are you? That's good point. Good point.
Exactly.
So silly.
It is. It is silly. Yeah, someone had a good question in the chat too, and I sort of have an answer for that, and I can explain my personal opinion more or less. Saint Skanderbeg says, why are people who never held a firearm in their hands legislate on how firearms should be regulated and defined? You don't need to know how to shoot to know that, sensible laws can help. It's like driving. If somebody's never driven, you still know that sensible laws common sense will tell you that, having speed limits and enforcing those speed limits and having, laws against drink driving can help reduce those things, because if you get caught, you get a hefty sentence and fine. If you keep drink driving, it helps. For me personally, I feel I can talk about gun violence and gun safety and what people should be doing, because I have fired firearms before. I started when I was 5. And my dad had them, but he kept them locked, and we weren't allowed anywhere near those things. That was our biggest thing. You don't touch them. So we did. I started out with a BB gun when I was 5, and I did until I was about 18. I would say. So I do know a tiny bit about guns. I know how they work. I know the basic principles of them. And So I feel that what I'm seeing is what, especially about the schools and stuff like that. First and foremost, far and away, I'm a mother first. So when I see about all these school shootings and I see what's going on and how we have to have our schools now instead of fixing the issue that we have, that my son has to go into a locked down school instead of fixing the gun problem as well. Of course, yes, secure the schools, make the kids safe, of course. I don't have an issue with that. But when we don't do anything else beyond that, that's when you start to have an issue. And this is where I'm having a problem with this too. We haven't seen much in schools this time. It's been adults, but are we going to have to lock up adults too instead of fixing the problem? Is this where we're going to have to go? That's everybody can talk about safety. No one else, you don't have to be an expert on anything to be able to talk about safety. Everybody knows the basic principles of that and knows what happens and how to keep people safe.
I know Claire's got her hand up. I just want to jump in very quickly. I bet you the next one, because the schools are always like, locked down and everything is safe, it'll be outside school. You can't stop that.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
It is horrible. So yes, that's the way. Yes. And I agree with that too. People should take a course on firearm safety before they even touch it. I agree, Saint Scanderberg. It's I agree, but that's how I feel about them.
And I answer that as well. I don't have guns in the house. And I chose not to have that because I know the tempers in the house. I know the depression. I know the post-traumatic stress disorder, and I know the maturity of others who live with me. And if you know that the gun in that situation is a bad idea, then don't do it. So actually, I can make decisions on guns. And I was going to mention that the NRA originally was created to promote excellence in marksmanship. And they used to look down on the Tommy gun. They used to look down on automatic weapons as not something that was part of their original goal, which was to promote excellence in marksmanship so that there would be a ready population for if there ever was a war. The military wouldn't have to train people so damn hard. It went beyond it went from saying assault weapons bad, I want marksmanship, to conspiracy theories. And what was it? Charlton Heston? No, it was Wayne LaPierre getting all bent when the UN trolled him shortly, like in 2013, where he was coming up with conspiracy theories about the plaque on the UN being the agenda. They will beat their arms into plowshares as some kind of agenda.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Claire.
Yes, I want to address some comments in the chat in regards to the Second Amendment. Yes, we do realize what the whole thing says, but in specifically about the fact, and I don't want to embarrass anybody. I'm going to be really respectful, and I don't want to have an actual discourse, a real good conversation about this. But the comment does say that gun bans do not work, and they're using Detroit and Chicago as examples in the United States as to why they don't work, because gang violence increased, because criminals don't obey the law. And in some instance, I agree with you, but I'm going to tell you why gun bans in the United States don't work, because they don't go from state to state, and guns travel from state to state, and so do criminals and people that want the guns. So if you put a gun ban in a city, and it's surrounded by everything else where guns are free and local and you could do whatever the hell you want, how does a reasonable person expect that to work? Also, you cannot say gun bans do not work. It's not a true statement, because international law and legislation in every other country proves it does. And those are the facts. It doesn't work here because we're not united in the message, because every state doesn't comply and we have no federal regulation to back it up. If we did, those bans would work. They would be enforceable. They would be more of a risk to criminals and everyone else. If you have to go to Mexico, Canada, or Europe to get your gun instead of the United States, criminals would have a little bit harder time. So I do agree
Exactly.
with you. I agree with you that they're not working, but I ask you to re-clarify the thought. You can't just not have gun bans because everybody doesn't cooperate. The reason they don't work is nobody's on the same page, period.
Right, because it's regulated to the states, and each state, you have 50 states, and 50 states are going to have 50 different regulations.
And this is the problem with the conversation. You want to come from
Mhm.
one small angle and you want to pull one fact and throw it at me. Look at the bigger picture. If you want to come with facts and evidence, pull the real deal, not the minute. I'm not going to microanalyze this to prove a point. I will show you the actual facts worldwide. I just did. It works everywhere else. We are failing.
We are failing.
We have
We're
to work
failing our
on
people.
the answer, not the fact. You can't stand on the principle. You can't have my gun because gun bans don't work in Chicago and Detroit. We tried that. Okay. Okay. You're right. They didn't work there. And I just told you why.
Hmm.
And Dick, you're
Exactly.
from British Columbia, and you know people who have guns, and
Many.
you're not anti-gun there.
Mm-mm.
It's just the type of gun. So
That's right.
why don't you share?
And yours
Yeah,
is only 5%. Yours is low. Your murder
Yeah, I
rate.
mean, I'm in the interior of British Columbia in a smaller town, and like 70% of the population drives a pickup truck, and everybody goes hunting, and they all have quads and blah blah yada yada. Like if you know the area I'm talking about, you know what I mean. I mean, everybody has camo outfits for hunting around here and fishing gear and all that stuff, right? But
Yep.
I don't know anybody who has anything along the lines of an assault rifle, right? So if you go in with a single shot rifle that has the whole, pull back and whatnot thing going on, you're not going in to do some mass shooting, because after the first shot, one person with balls is going to get you, right? But if you go in with a pull the trigger and just unload like Rambo, it's going to happen. That alone makes it worth it. It just does. Now, am I saying we don't have any assault rifles? No, we've got some. Can you get some underground and whatnot? Of course you can, because just like anywhere, illegal things get traded and whatnot. But if there was way less places in North America to trade them, the few that would be traded around in the underground would be worth a fortune. And people wouldn't just break them out for any old beef they had with somebody and so on. It would be, quieter, right?
Absolutely. And William Kirchmeier made a perfect comment in here. He says the very existence of firearms are a conundrum in that the uncontrollable variable is that a human propensity to emotional incontinence will result in people dying. 100%. Thank you, William. And yeah, we have hunting here. We have a huge thing of hunting up here. We have it's Maine. We've, Pine Tree State. We've got forests everywhere. So everybody hunts up here and always have. Dad used to go out. I used to have a friend that would go out and go hunting and bring us back, deer or moose or whatever. And, they handled their things responsibly. They locked him up. Dad had a gun safe. He locked him up. He had, even when he was just down to his one pistol he had left. He locked it up. He had the trigger guard on it. He had that. He had the safe. He had,
right.
He was responsible. He kept the ammunition out of it and off to the side. And I understand why. And this is another complaint that I hear a lot too about the defending their home thing, saying why they can't keep a gun in a safe and with the ammo separate. But you can do that. And a lot of the times what happens is, don't quote me on this, but I have heard of this before where it says that, you're not as, you're still just as not safe when someone's breaking into your home when you have a gun as without. So it's just to me, that's just nonsense. And if a child gets a hold of that, we hear this a lot. Well, what happened with the 6-year-old this year? That gun obviously wasn't secure because a 6-year-old got a hold of it and took it into a school and shot his teacher. Can you tell me that's keeping that gun safe? Do you think that gun should have been had such easy access? It was loaded and it had no trigger guard on it, obviously. So this kid was able to put this in his backpack, take it out, and shoot his teacher. Do we not see a problem with this?
Yeah. Well, here, let me bring up a picture here. DKG brought this over. So here is a picture of a couple, and they've got some guns just laying on their patio there so they can show them, right? Now, let me switch over here, and I'll scroll down, and you can see that's quite a few guns. And look at how badass some of those are. I mean, down near the lower right with the big scope and the massive butt end on it and whatnot. I don't even know if Rambo could pick that up without having a sigh like, whoa, that's heavy, right? But let's scroll back up a bit and let me scroll to the right. There's a little child. There's a lot more guns. There's another kid holding one. Look at this. Look at this, right? And they keep going and going. And now I'll scroll down and I'll scroll back across. If you have that many, simply laying them out on your patio like that should be illegal because one person could see you and all hell could break loose. But why does any one person need that? I mean,
how would they?
This isn't Lego. Why? Well, what's going on?
How are they keeping those secure? All of those guns. Do you have gun safes all throughout your house, or what are you doing here? Or are some of these just kind of hanging out, kind of just? Bleh?
Oh no, they're nailed down to the decking, so nobody can take them.
Oh, there we go.
And now they've advertised they have them, so they better well be prepared to use them for when someone tries to rob them. As far as collecting guns goes, as someone who's been a machinist, I can say some of them are works of art. The M1 Garand that actually requires machining, the Titus Judge. There are some of them that are really nice. If you bought a Browning shotgun that was made between 2006 and 2009, guess who made the die to form your receiver? Yours truly. So I've actually had hand in gun making. The place where I worked kind of made the receivers. They made gas cylinders and a lot of other things. So not exactly hostile or have my hands out of guns. But God damn it. Don't do that on the goddamn deck. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, in the UK, we have gun collectors, but all the guns are decommissioned. So they can still own a gun. It's just decommissioned. You can't kill anybody with it.
Exactly. And the actual crimes are actually exemplified, and the penalty is exemplified if anything is done with a gun, right, DK? All the gun crime itself is penalized more severely than it is here in the United States. Like, no one's saying take all the guns away. That's a misnomer, and that's an argument that's going on. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, how could you absolutely deny the fact that some gun control is necessary? Regulation is required to prevent deaths and mass shootings in the United States, period. Nobody wants all your guns.
No.
Stop throwing that at me. Nobody said that. That would be silly. I'm not a silly person. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you're ignoring facts. Don't quote me facts from inside the United States when we can prove that internationally it worked. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't say having a gun prevents crime when only 3% of people with a gun stopped mass shootings. 3%. Are you saying the 97% that died aren't worth the regulation? Because 3% of you got off your ass and did something about it? No, it's not worth it. The greater good succeeds. 97% of those people deserve to be alive, and regulation could do it. They're the victims
Yes.
here, not you with your damn gun that needs some assault weapon. We're talking about assault weapon bans here. Let's be clear. I don't want your
Mhm.
damn gun. Keep your pocket pistol if it makes you feel big.
Right.
You don't have a right
Exactly.
to an assault weapon and 97% of the people that are dying. You don't. That's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Like I loved it. I love that. Like trying to come at me with facts that have nothing to do with it. You're
Well,
arguing
that's it.
emotionally. When you talk about me taking your guns, you're arguing
Nobody's taking them.
emotionally. You're not
Exactly.
you're not spitting facts and evidence, and you
No.
got no case. So grab a tissue. Come back after you read some shit. How about that?
Exactly. Exactly. And what we need to do is we need regulations on them. We need
Mhm.
good comprehensive ones that stretch across the whole thing. And what we need to do is have things like close the gun show loopholes, close the private sales loopholes, so that everybody gets a background check, because a lot of the times this is what's been happening. Someone either gets someone to buy it for them, or they get they get it from somewhere else. And yes, that's an issue too. So we need to address the fact that if someone's buying a gun for somebody else, that should have raised a red flag too. So we need to have comprehensive background checks. We need to have mental health checks as well. I do believe as well. And please secure your stuff. Please make sure that kids can't get a hold of them, like the 6-year-old in Virginia. 6 years old, and they were able to get a hold of that gun. The 2-year-old in West Bath near me got a hold of their parents' gun and shot their parents. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Secure your guns. I don't know why that's such an issue and why people get upset with me when I say these things, but secure that crap. Come on. Come on, we can do that. There. Sorry, I had to have that said.
No. And welcome, Nicholas.
Oh, hello.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, no, it's no problem. We're glad you could make it. We're so glad to have you here. We're just talking about regulations and what we would like to see.
Well,
how effective things could be.
yeah, it's a complicated issue. I've talked
It
with
is.
some pro Second Amendment people who argue that while they're actually for some reasonable gun control, they argue against it because they feel it's a slippery slope, and they feel that so many people on the left are arguing so strongly in an unreasonable position that they don't want to give any ground in the hopes that they land somewhere in a reasonable side. It's unfortunate, but as somebody on the left who, by the way, in trying to defend Roe v. Wade, has sometimes argued positions somewhat more liberal than even I take, if for no other reason than to try to move the Overton window in that direction. I do get that
Absolutely.
argument. It's not a good one, but I get it. I also think you have a problem with guns too, which is you can't really secure them and use them for home defense, at least not easily. If you have them in a gun safe and you hear there's a robber or somebody's coming up the stairs to come into the bedroom, you've only got a few seconds. So that's one of the unspoken arguments that a pro Second Amendment uses for why they should have guns. But the reality is they say, well, we'll practice them safely. We'll make sure that they're locked. If you make sure that they're locked, you probably can't actually use them in most home self-defense situations, because by the time you're aware there's a problem, you only have a few seconds. Now, that's not all. We've seen some cases where people really can use them in self-defense. We've also seen, 4 out of 5 times, if you have a gun, you are 4 out of 5 gun shootings are shooting that are discharged in a home are not in self-defense, but either accidental and shooting of a family member. 4 out of 5. So, and everybody thinks they're going to be that one because they're responsible. But if you're going to be what quote responsible is when it comes to a firearm, it becomes very difficult to actually use it for home self-defense. So people who say that's what they're using it for, yeah, they may find they don't have the level of responsibility that they talk about, because and I'll say one last thing. I don't want to dominate, but there was a great for Christmas, a whole bunch of memes came out on Twitter of people, usually south of the Mason-Dixon line, holding their guns very proudly with their families and so on and so forth. I have a lot of friends with guns. The co-host of In Time has 5 guns, including an AR-14. So, I'm reasonably familiar with them. The first rule of gun ownership is the gun is always loaded. The gun is always loaded. The gun is always loaded. You see in these photos, Grandpa's got 2 pistols and he's got one aimed at his daughter's head. And he's not trying to, but it's like they're all close knit here. The kids have semi-automatics. They've all got, and photo after photo after photo of we're responsible gun owners. So it's like I can find 5 violations of just proper gun safety in every one of these photos. It's insane. It's a culture. It's not about, and I think what you said earlier makes a lot of sense. It's usually the arguments are from emotion. People like their guns. I kind of do get why. I really do. But this is one of those things, you don't need them and they're dangerous. So I'm for strict gun control. And yeah, that's it.
Right. We need all types, because I know there's pushback in the chat about assault bans isn't really going to hit crime, because most crime, like homicides and robberies, are committed with smaller caliber weapons like handguns and stuff. I realize that. But on that issue, we need stronger penalty for the use of them and more regulation on how you get them and who has them. I understand that, but when we're talking about mass shootings that we opened the show with, 40 of them, all those deaths, that's a different statistic. Like, we have to, there's multiple issues with gun control here in the United States, and it's not going to get any better. So I realize, I'm not like dumb. I realize assault weapon ban that they have on the floor now with the bump stocks and all of that is not going to stop crime. I'm talking about like innocent people that are getting blown away hundreds at a time. School shootings, yes, it's going to stop those. Mall shootings, concert shootings, it's going to stop those. Like, come on. Like, I realize you need more penalty and other regulation. So when I say assault ban, I'm not silly enough to realize that that's not going to drop our murder rate. Well, it is going to drop our murder rate because of the mass shootings, but not to the crime rate that you all are speaking of. I get that. I've read all the statistics you're throwing at us. That's not what I was talking about.
Well, that's like saying that we shouldn't make heroin illegal because it will do nothing to stop the methamphetamine deaths.
Exactly, because speed freaks will still be speed freaks.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, really, if you want to come at me with an apple if I'm talking about an apple. Because if you throw an orange at me, I'm going to throw it back. Okay? Because we have to have an honest discussion about the same thing. Okay? Like the same thing. You can't tell me it's not going to decrease homicides sufficiently enough. I get that. Or bank robberies. I get that.
Yeah, and I think there's a message being missed here. The fact that handguns are used in a higher degree than automatic weapons doesn't change the fact that when automatic weapons are used, lots of people end up in seriously bad situations. And I just, you can say, oh, but what if you're like facing a wild herd of boar or whatever that one comment was in the chat? I swear to God, when the hell does that ever happen on a regular basis in life that you need an AR-15 or 2 on hand just in case? What the hell?
Right.
Come on.
There's going to be a mass surgence of rabbits going to get you. Those damn rabbits, they're going to get you. Those deer are going to run amok, and you're going to have to shoot 100 of them at a time. Yeah, I get it.
Now, that's the outside case argument, right? It's the argument that, well, there's a possibility, there's a 1 in a million that sometime in your life, maybe you'll need it. Ergo, let's have them available despite all the consequences that we know will happen.
Yeah.
Nicholas, very valid point, because let's be real. Aimee read the statistics, the current statistics, people. Not 20 years ago, the current statistics say that for a mass shooting, only 3% of them were stopped by somebody with a gun that wasn't a police officer. So you'll need to have a gun so you can prevent the problem that we're talking about right here, which is innocent children,
Mhm.
And people that are just out shopping or enjoying a concert or at a bar, minding their own damn business, that don't even care that the shooter's alive, okay? That is what we were talking about when we opened the show. And only 3% of you with your weaponry could stop it. What about the other 97%? Okay, like, sorry, your statistic doesn't hold up. Having guns doesn't prevent mass shootings. You're not stopping them. Legislation is going to do it, period. You've had 50 years to stop the mass shootings, gun owners. Where the
And
hell are you?
the
Where the
argument
hell are
always
you?
here too is that this is a mental health issue. It's not
Exactly.
a gun issue. Well, let's assume for a second that they actually mean what they say. Then I assume that they're for Obamacare. I assume they're for socialized medicine. I
Yeah,
assume they're for some method by which, because it turns out that people who have severe mental health problems are the ones that are least likely to go get their annual checkup. They're least likely to have a job. They're least likely to have insurance. So if you're, what I
right.
hear from the people on the right is, well, gee, I'm just as interested in you are in stopping gun violence, but I
Then
know
why
it's a
didn't they
mental
vote
health
for the
issue.
mental health clause in getting a gun license?
Well, or any number of other. Why don't they
Right.
support that people can get mental health care checkups for free?
Exactly.
Well,
Mhm.
because that's when it becomes a gun control issue.
Yeah, but we even put gun control legislation forward to make it just a little more difficult for anyone with a known problem. Not even that you had to get screened, but if you had a known problem of mental health issues, it should be a little more difficult for you to get an assault weapon.
Well,
And they voted it down.
I want
They
to.
tabled it. They said it wasn't fair.
It's one of the Scandinavian countries. I want to say Norway. It's been a very long time since I've looked at guns seriously, but I think it's Norway. Hands out a gun to every citizen. They force you to take a gun. You're required to have a gun. It's a semi-automatic rifle convertible to automatic. You don't have to pay for it. They give you ammunition. They give you the weapon. They give it to everybody. Why? Because they have an actual militia. You're not going to invade because everybody there has a gun. But they do mental health screenings. They do train you on how to use the guns. They ensure. Oh, it's Switzerland. Thank you. Yep, it's Switzerland. My bad. They train you. They do mental health screenings. Every gun has a ballistics profile. So if the gun is used in a crime, they know within 12 to 24 hours whose gun it was that fired the bullets, that did whatever. They can, and they're knocking on that guy's door saying, where's your gun? And the
Exactly.
people who lose their guns are actually held responsible, which is common sense. Now, these people who have more guns that they're actually giving out to, like, the percentage of the population that is actually armed than any other country on the planet, and they look at our gun control laws and they think we are utterly insane, and they're
Exactly.
giving them away for free.
They are, and that their penalties for what you do erroneously with them, or against other people with them, are stronger too. Like there's recourse there, and that's the problem. It's like the gun itself isn't the problem. Okay, it's how you're using it. Would you agree? I mean, I'm not saying that. I live in America. I know we're not going to get rid of all guns. That's not what I'm saying.
It depends on how you define and how you use it, because I don't think it's reasonable to expect that, at least the way things are set up now, that an average citizen will use them responsibly. So
no,
then the
not in
problem is
America.
the gun.
Absolutely, here,
Yeah.
not in America. We could not do it because no, because just not being able to have the conversation about gun control proves that we are all just unreasonable. We
Exactly.
shouldn't have them. Yeah.
Exactly. And if I may jump in here too before I get to you, Commander, there's a comment in the chat that sort of needs to be addressed. Let's not compare gun control conversations to the Third Reich, please. Come on, that
Really?
we're getting to a point of silliness with that. I do not like that. I am so very sorry, but please do not. That's just ridiculous.
Aimee. Yeah.
You're very welcome. I won't stand for that. We're gonna just keep right away from any mention
Wow.
of that douchebag
Mhm.
Hitler or anything like that. No,
So wait a minute.
just
So
no.
are they
We're
are they inferring that us wanting for our people to be safe,
disarming
for
people are
shopping, and our children to be safe in school, that we're acting like the Third Reich? Like,
I'm gonna.
are you
Oh, I was
serious?
about to address something similar to that. It turns out, and this is the truth, the Social Democrats of the Weimar Republic were wanting to keep the guns out of the hands of Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Hitler took over, he was handing out guns like candy to the people who supported him. And they had the Hitler Youth, where they were being taught to tear down guns and assemble them blindfolded. And then one of the things that people like to talk about is, well, everyone in Israel has a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not the 1970s, and that's not the case anymore. And if you've ever been to Israel, you notice all these off-duty IDF soldiers have their guns and they're unloaded. Why? Why are they carrying their guns? They're off-duty. Well, it turns out Israel has some of the toughest gun control laws in the world. And if you're an IDF soldier and you lose your gun, from what I have been told, it's basically life in prison, or almost life in prison.
Well, and Israel is a unique set of circumstances. It's a country that is at war 24/7 with a number of neighbors that want to eliminate it. That is a different set of circumstances than the U.S., UK, or just about any other westernized country.
Mm-hmm.
I'll point out,
not everyone has a gun there. Not everyone.
No, but everybody there does have military training. They're all required to be in the military. So they all know how to use a gun and how to have one safely. So there's a number of circumstances. Israel is an extraordinarily poor example. I have heard an argument, it's actually not a bad argument, that if during World War II, prior to World War II, the Jews had all been armed, they would have made it a lot harder for them to all be taken to the concentration camps. There is probably some truth to that, and there has been truth to rulers having a harder time pushing around citizens who are armed, and rulers, but China's got a great history of this, taking away weapons so that they can, they can more easily oppress the masses. Having said that, first of all, there are still plenty of ways to oppress the masses, misinformation, so on and so forth. We've seen a lot of that. Second of all, the reality is there isn't anything you can do against the U.S. military. None of your guns that you have is going to hold off the U.S. government if it decides it is going to forcibly relocate you from your home because they're building a wall or whatever it is they're doing. And this is a very, very poor argument in the age of drones, airstrikes, and tactical nuclear weapons.
That's why I think that's very well said, Nick, is because when we're looking at that comment, and they're just like, first of all, it's an emotional argument to even bring that part up, and even in comparison. But I understand now, as I'm looking at other comments there, that really they're just pointing out that we might be open to tyranny or whatever if we take guns away from everybody, which is not what I'm talking about anyway. I'm talking about regulating them to protect our people. Because what do we do when the tyranny is here? It's our own damn people. That's what we have to work on, is
and
that
January 6th, really.
Yeah, really, yeah, because like it's our own people. Like you want to throw other countries at us and worry about that kind of stuff, and that's why we need guns. When actually it's an internal conflict here ourselves that we can't even have a conversation without you throwing emotional fear and argument. You want to ignore all of the dead children. You want to ignore all of the innocent people that are dead. Okay, because of a what if that you want to throw at me. That's what I mean by let's talk apples to apples. Like, let's talk the same conversation. You're throwing oranges at me. I'm just going to make juice and throw it back, because that is not what we're talking about. Okay.
And I have a little, can I jump in first?
Please.
I'm very sorry, Nick.
No, don't, please.
Thank you. I was just going to ask, if you're laughing about January 6th, why don't you tell me in the chat what you think is tyrannical about our government today. Can you explain that to me? What's tyrannical and why do we need to fight it?
Well, and
tyrannical, and if used properly, the meaning of the word has nothing to do with anything in Canadian or American politics right now. It's just an over-exaggeration of things didn't go my way. Wah.
Yeah, I like when we're all being called liberals too, when you have no idea. These are emotional arguments, dude. Like whoever you are. Like, I get that you just want to throw out there like we're all idiots because you refuse to have the conversation with common sense. You just want to do what you
Oh,
want. You don't
And
even
what
have a point. What was the point of January 6th? You
Mhm.
didn't like the outcome of an election.
Mhm.
Gee, that's a great reason to burn it all down and to do what you did. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, no, it's not. You
No,
can't
it's
even
not.
argue the point as to why you wanted that to go. You didn't go with any of the arguments where they actually looked 3 different investigations into the election, but you want to ignore all that because you didn't get your way. Like, this is an emotional argument. How about some facts? We are not morons or liberals up here.
Exactly. And this
Yeah,
oh,
this
dude,
right
thanks for
here.
showing your ass. It's really ugly. I
Exactly.
wish you'd put it away. Really. You heard in the
Exactly.
chat.
And this is exactly why politics are so polarized today. This is what we're seeing.
Everything has to come
And-
down to left versus right, not
It's not. I'm
what's
neutral.
good or
Exactly.
bad for the people. You can't. It seems to be inseparable now. You can't get past the partisan politics to actually address things that are just simply right or wrong.
Mhm.
It has to
Oh,
be left or
mhm.
right. I don't get it.
Yeah, Amy, did you
Amy.
know that liberal scum invaded when we didn't like Kavanaugh? Did you see any guns, violence, broken women, anything? Did anybody die? Did anybody get hurt? Okay, yeah, sure. Nice example you put there. Boy, I'm telling you, when you show your butt, you show your butt, dude. This is great. Thank you
Oh.
for making my point. Because those
Exactly.
aren't apples to apples. That was actually a protest, which is allowed peacefully and didn't endanger anybody. It was
First
opinion
Amendment
based.
right.
It was
First
opinion
Amendment
based,
right.
not a rifle in your face and breaking things and destroying property. Wow.
And asking to hang somebody as well. You know, I'm
Yes,
sorry,
yeah, we
but
didn't.
yeah.
Nobody threatened the vice president and tried to like hook up Pelosi over it. Like, come on, like really? Wow. That's
Well,
Let's-
but Claire, didn't you see all the flowers in the rifle barrels? I mean, it was a peaceful protest.
Mhm.
Oh,
That
let's
was
not
Vietnam.
let's not forget the tyranny like going on in Florida, where you have teachers and librarians pulling all the books out of these schools because they're afraid that they're going to face serious prison time if any of the books have anything in them that offend the sensibility of people who get their knickers in a twist over the green M&M not being sexy enough. Where they are pulling all the books out. Okay, but that's tyranny. We'll stay on track. I'm sorry.
Stay on target.
Oh,
Stay on target.
I did want to point out. So, if you're
Mhm.
going to make the argument, which is what the founding fathers essentially did, was the idea that the Second Amendment was there so the citizens could protect themselves from the government. That was a huge part of it. So that's where this argument is rooted. There are histories of people who were able to defend themselves from their governments when they were properly armed. A, things have changed dramatically. B, the government, in terms of weapons and what the government can use. B, the government is capable of using other means, mass media, fake news, yada, yada, yada. And C, the problem is the rest of that statement, which is a well-regulated militia, meaning that the intention was never how the Supreme Court has given it with the much broader definition that everybody sort of has their own personal. What was the argument? I think it was a personal right, or it was I forget the phrasing, but the idea was a well-regulated militia. The guns were still supposed to be part of a well-regulated unit that had some form of responsibility and had repercussions if they were not taking care of themselves and their guns. None of that is what I've seen anybody who's for the Second Amendment argue. It's very strange to see the Second Amendment, chopped up, and people presumably love it and are willing to die for it. Certainly willing to say, you can take my gun out of my cold, dead hands. Are the same people who are very happy to ignore certain elements of it that the founding fathers were crystal clear on. So I'm happy to go down the rabbit hole of the argument that, yes, it might have helped in World War II or this or that. I'm not sure that that's the case, but let's assume so. And that's certainly what the founding fathers would have argued. Fine, let's go down that rabbit hole. But it starts with a well-regulated militia.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Well regulated. What does that mean? And I need to get to DKG, please.
Thank you, Aimee. There's a part of the Constitution, and you'll have to maybe someone who knows the Constitution a bit more than I do, because I'm a stupid Brit. That's repeated twice throughout the Constitution, and it's three things, and I can't remember the third for the life of me. But it's like every American citizen has the right, for life and property, and
Life,
those things
liberty.
cannot be taken.
Yeah.
Life, liberty, and property; those things cannot be taken away without due process. So,
Right.
being blown away in a school is not due process.
It's a violation of the Constitution. You're right.
Exactly.
Life, liberty,
So,
and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the right to
there you
property.
go.
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly.
said twice.
Mm-hmm.
So
Twice.
that should overrule the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm. When the Second Amendment is applied so erroneously, yes, we're talking about having a free. We're talking about a militia, yes, and the right to protect ourselves, well, not to be used against our own people so erroneously as it's been. They use it as a catch-all to do whatever they want, and it's not fair.
The
Absolutely.
due process argument is has faults, unfortunately. In the same way that so free speech, you're entitled to free speech, but that doesn't mean that, for example, your speech can't be censored by corporations or in other ways, or that you have a right to be platformed. It just means that the government can't
Exactly.
interfere with your free speech. Now, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is actually not in the Constitution. That's in the Declaration of
No,
Independence.
that's in the okay, yes.
Declaration. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
So,
But you were close, but it is
it's
in our
very
founding
common.
documents.
There are a lot of Americans who make that argument as well, and the problem is you're not actually guaranteed it because it's not in the Constitution. What is guaranteed is presumably the right to due process, but first of all, that's due process by the government. So if the government is the government can't blow you away. The government can't do X, Y, and Z, but it's another if. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that the government is required to intervene when somebody else does. That's why, for example, a murder is not a federal offense. It's an issue for however the states decide that they want to deal with it. So it gets complicated. I do tend to agree that I think the excess of guns creates a hazard that violates the Constitution, and I think the due process clause is part of it, but it unfortunately is murky. I used to argue this like semi-professionally for a while. It's been like 2 or 3 years since I've engaged on it, but unfortunately it's a lot more complicated than, especially when
you should have solved it by a duel.
I should have what?
Solved it with a duel. Guns at 30 paces, and then we'll see who wins.
Yep. There you go. Alexander Hamilton. That was, absolutely no. Well, and I did it one with my co-host, and he's actually extraordinarily well informed on the issue and makes very good pro Second Amendment arguments. And again, has 5 guns himself. So I think you also have a problem, which is difficult for people who aren't in the U.S. to understand. But it depends on how, when the Constitution, when the U.S. was first formed, it was intended to be much more like a loose federation of states, and states was really thought of as countries, almost a bit more like the EU. So people would introduce themselves, well, I'm from Kentucky, I'm not from America, I'm from Massachusetts, I'm from wherever. And people saw themselves as belonging to their state first, and then the United States later. And the United States was really just about defense and treaties with other countries, trade, stuff like that. It wasn't supposed to get involved in anything else, including at the state level. It's been doing a lot more of that. I tend to be a fan of that. The Supreme Court's been rolling that back. But the reason all that's important is because it makes it very difficult to stop things like what's happening in Florida with the books. It makes it extremely difficult because doesn't Florida, as a sovereign state, have the right to decide how they're going to educate their children? What interest does the U.S. government have? And while I think they have a big interest, constitutionally, they don't. So what happens with guns? What happens when one state says, well, we don't want any guns in this state anywhere, and the next door neighbor state says, oh, all you have to do is cross state lines and you can get all your guns here. It becomes a huge problem because we have 50 different laws. That's why there's no lawyer that can just practice in the United States. You have to get a license for each individual state because the laws are different. So that also unfortunately complicates matters.
Yeah,
Exactly. Thank you. Yes.
Well, we
This
knew
is-
that this was going to be a bit contentious, didn't we, Aimee? But-
We did.
yeah.
But I'm disappointed I haven't been called a gardening implement yet. Damn it. But I
Me
did get called a
too.
commie. I like that one.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
We
That
are
was-
liberal morons, though. I mean, yay.
Yes.
Like, oh,
Yes, we are.
yeah.
We're liberal idiots and
Yeah.
have
Do
never
they
touched
even
a gun
know
in
what-
our lives. When I just got done speaking about what guns I've
Yeah.
since I've
Actually,
handled
Do
since
they
I was
even
five.
know what a commie is? Or
I
is
don't.
that just an insult that they sling without understanding it?
I
That's
just
the word
underst-
du jour. That's all it is. It's just the mot du
Yeah.
jour. It's just what they are.
When they
it's
start
just
talking
stupidity.
sides, they lose me because that's not the
Mhm.
conversation here. It's not about sides.
It's
It's
just
about
Exactly.
reasonable conversation. It's about reasonable conversation about,
Mm-hmm.
saving some lives around here and a start of the conversation to get better legislation to do it. When you got to get all
Exactly.
emotional like that and talk sides and like this, that, and then when you have to bring the T
Bring
word
out
into it,
Hitler and
like all this stuff, and you got to throw Hitler at the little
Commies
mustache man, and past elections, and oh my God, there was a fire in 2016, and damn, that's not the conversation. You're just proving
No.
the point, and I hope everybody sees that your inability to have the actual conversation makes you wrong from the start. Shut up.
absolutely.
Shut up.
And
Absolutely. And if you just
here,
and if,
if Hitler was here on the stream, he'd probably say, "No, that's not what I meant."
It's
That's
not
not
what you
what I
meant.
meant.
It's just what you
I
type.
know
Like, it needs
nothing.
2,000 characters in that chat that I've been seeing. It's damn well what you meant. You want to play partisan.
Exactly.
You're just showing yourself as a
You
partisan.
just want to
hat.
show that
That's not
you're
what we're doing
outraged.
here. We'd actually give you an opinion. If you
Mhm.
weren't being so partisan about it, you're slinging names. You're saying that we're all leftists and morons and what we actually believe when you have no idea. You're not listening to
no
the
idea.
conversation. You're listening to respond. Period. You don't hear
My
a damn
finger-
word you're saying.
They're not hearing anything. They're not
What?
hearing anything at all. What they're
Mhm.
doing is they're just spewing shit that they think is going to stick. They're just going to
Mhm.
throw shit at you and see if it sticks to the wall.
I
They
recommend
didn't
finger-
listen to a fucking word I said or
That's right.
what.
My finger has a
how
mind
I
of its
came
own.
about.
I can't help it.
Okay, here comes.
Someone put Amy language because I said
Yes.
the fuck word.
No, but he didn't miss
Streamlabs.
anything. Yes.
Yeah,
Streamlabs.
Streamlabs even told me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We need to start a fund for conversation 101 for these morons. Like, go learn how to have a conversation first before you come in here.
I know. And I did delete one comment that said, that called everybody retards. You know what? Fuck off.
Oh,
They
with
use
that.
the
yeah.
R word too.
Yeah,
Yeah, way
they
to
did.
make friends, dude.
Yeah, good
you're
job.
Good. You're
A
good.
great way to have a good conversation. And this is what we're basically talking about. And, and yes, I had some questions but do we really need to get that emotional where we have to call people retards and things like that? Come on,
It-
Exactly. And we did get a super chat. So I am going to get this real quick too. We have one from St. Skanderberg. Beg. Thank you so much. 20 American dollars. My liberal friends, more super chats and less malarkey. With love, a dude leaning right. And honestly, I am personally conservative. I have, like I said, I've had guns before. I don't have them now because it's just not a good idea with a child with autism. I'm not as horrible as what you guys seem to think. I'm a hoe and all that fun stuff. Disappointed I didn't get that tonight. I was hoping, but I did get the R word. I got something different. So, but yeah, come on. This is not how you have a conversation. If you want to have a real, true conversation, stop calling names. Stop acting like a freaking idiot in my chat, and I won't delete you.
Mhm.
Have a normal conversation. When you start shouting communism or you're a commie, that's not getting anybody anywhere. And if you're just going to be here to throw temper tantrums and claim how terrible we all are because we don't agree with everything that you think,
Mhm.
Well,
We
you know,
we just want to stop people. We just want to stop people being killed. That's all we're talking about.
well, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. We want this to
It's it.
we want this to sit, you know, we want to be able to send our kids to school without worrying whether or not someone is going to come along and do this, you know, shoot our children. I'm a mother first and foremost, so that's my first thought. I want to be able to, you know, see people go to a mall or go to a movie and not get shot up. I want to see people celebrate the Lunar New Year and not get shot up. I want to see all of these things. I'm perfectly fine with guns. Like I said, I've been shooting them since I was 5. Shot them until I was around 18 and went out on my own and just got too damn busy to have one. And, you know, and of course, yeah, now I probably would need another safety course again. So what? But come on, this is getting to the point of sheer stupidity when you have to come into my goddamn chat and tell me that I'm a fucking retard because you don't like how I think about these things and how I want to send my son to school and have him be safe. Fuck off with that shit. Not gonna tolerate it.
Yep, showed his ugly ass. That's all I got to say. Like, you made your point, dude.
See, what I don't understand is, you know, there are these people that come in, like people in the chat. There are obviously like very, very pro-gun, but they don't offer any real help. I mean, that's what we're talking about. We can work together, and well,
We
I say
can.
we. I'm a Brit, so I can't do fuck all. But you know, we should be working together and sorting out the
Yes.
problem, not just saying, oh, you know, it's fine. It's only a small percent of people. It doesn't matter. You know, that doesn't help.
Small states, no, they can't afford a lot of this crap to come in. I mean, it's, you know, come on. You know, there's only so much we can do like that. Why do we have to make our schools into fortresses and prisons because these people feel that we can't regulate anything?
I'd like
Explain
to
that to me.
Yeah, I'd like to read a comment from the chat from Record,
thank you,
and I think
DKG.
some of you actually already saw it, because I think we all agree. It shouldn't be about who's right and who's wrong. It's about what the facts say, and the facts say that America needs something to change for guns to be safer, however it gets done. And I agree. I absolutely agree. That's the conversation, not like trying to take everything away from you, but have a conversation. Stop ignoring the facts. We were talking about, it's fact that the more guns there are, the more deaths there are. Period.
Right.
Period. Okay. And why can't something be done to prevent that, to regulate it so that you could still have your gun, but kids can be safe in school and grandparents can shop at the mall and people can go to concerts and bars without worrying about 40, 50, 60, 100 people getting shot to death because somebody
Exactly.
got pissed off with an automatic assault weapon.
Right. We can't even address, you know, mental health issues. We can't even address things like healthcare. We can't even address any of this without people getting angry.
You see how we started with one small part of it, Aimee? Only the assault weapon ban. One small part of it. And they act like we just like made them un-American. Like we just took everything away from them. Like we just stripped them of everything. And all we're talking about is assault weapons. But not once did anyone in that chat who doesn't want gun regulation, not once did they tell us why they need assault weapons and why that is actually beneficial.
Why we can't
to
regulate
America.
anything.
Because all the statistics say it doesn't.
We regulate drunk driving. It has reduced. I mean,
we have to wear a damn seatbelt to drive in a car.
We have to wear seatbelts. Yes, we do. That helps with, you know,
we need baby
have
seats now for the children in the car up to a certain age to protect them because the statistics showed that people were dying without them. Well, we are showing statistics that people are dying. Oh, socialism. Yeah, the socialist movement to get seatbelts in America. Nobody stopped that.
Is this when I'm supposed to say? Is this when I'm supposed to say I'm the Canadian here? I'll tell you about socialism.
Exactly.
And you're the least social person here.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know what I find funny, right? Operator Starsky has a weekly stream, and he's from a country fighting the people with the sickles and hammers. I can sing songs in Hebrew, and you were calling us Nazis too, I'm sure. And Mike Bertelson was the president of the, I think, West Hartford or Hartford Republican Party. So we actually do have people who are shills here, who have been involved in the Republican Party. Like Aimee said, she had conservative leanings. And for about 5 years, I knew a member of the state legislature during my Christian phase who was a Republican, but couldn't receive the Republican nomination again because he wasn't batshit crazy. And we were friends. So I can get along with people with whom I have disagreements with if they are willing to show respect. So please show respect.
Right. And John McCain was awesome. I
did like him.
always looked up to him. I always looked up to John McCain, and I thought he was an amazing person. And Aaron Reese brings up an extremely good point. He says, has anyone brought up how the gun industry dumps a lot of money into preventing gun laws?
Yes,
Absolutely.
they are
Thank
the
you.
main reason we can't get anything through, because just about everybody sitting in a seat right now has received money from the NRA. Actually, it would be a shorter list of the ones who show us that they didn't get any money from them
It'd be
somehow.
very short. It would be very short.
And that's all of them. Well, that's not partisan. I'm not saying left, right. I'm talking all of them. They greased. Yeah, they very well grease it. Yeah.
They do. Not only that, they put out these campaigns where all this information gets spread around saying these things like, well, they're trying to take your guns, that, you know, regulations don't work. And if you hear that repeatedly, you are going to think that. But like we said before, oh, thank you so much, Stephen Walsh. We've got a little critter here for 50 American dollars. Thank you so much. Says you're amazing. And so thank you. That's adorable too. I
Oh,
like
and
that critter.
sparklers too. Thanks,
Yes,
Stephen.
thank you.
It's
beautiful.
Happy Lunar New Year. It's a year of the bunny rabbit this year. I think that's neat. So thank you for that. Thank you very much. And it's, you know, so they put, not only do they push out, you know, not only do they fund all the people who are getting elected, they're also pushing out information about how, you know, and it's constant too, about how, you know, they're trying to take your guns, they're trying to do this, they're trying to do that and the other thing. And that's not exactly what's happening. And regulations can and do work at times. You know, we have regulations for driving. We have, you know, you have to have a driver's license. You have laws that you have to follow. You have all kinds of little things that, you know, kinds of things that you have to do. You can't drive, you can't drink and drive. You can't, you know, speed over the speed limit, or you get a ticket and you're going to pay for it. So do those work? Actually, they do. And I did a report on that even way back in 9th grade, a century ago. That showed that, and slowing down your speed, and it actually is helpful to you because speed limits actually do help you save gas. So things do work, and that's what where I'm getting at is regulations do work, and they can do a positive thing. It's not just to push you down or anything like that, but they do.
May I address something in the chat? There is a comment being made that UK gun control doesn't work because of the statistics saying that there still are shortens regularly there. I kind of say that internationally, that, you know, you may be upset that you still have some gun violence there, but 0.7, not even 1%. No, you actually are doing it better than most countries. I mean, yes, it still exists. Nobody can get rid of it completely, but your gun control there is working compared to other countries all around the world. I just read the current statistics.
And like I said earlier, Claire, Claire, every time there is a death by gun in the UK, we hear about it on the news.
Right. So you are
Every
seeing it more
time.
regularly. If we saw it more regularly on our televisions, it would be the only thing on.
Absolutely.
Okay? Because that's the difference. But you are, you know, I see the frustration. Nobody wants to hear about it. I get it. But please don't say they're not working. They are working.
They are. They do
better.
Work. They do.
And
work.
just
and
like Canada, only 5%. That's astounding. They should be proud, but they still have guns, right, Dick? Like, you still have guns, but they don't have the violence because it's balanced in regards to regulation and penalty. And that's what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Regulation restriction, in penalty. That is the three things that have to be done. That's what other countries
Absolutely.
did to make it work. And if you don't do it all at the same time throughout the whole country, not just one state, one city, one
Mhm.
small area, it can't work because, crime, to throw those crime statistics at me like I'm a moron and I don't think that the country is a big wide place that we could drive from one end to the other, to
None
get
of
our
us
gun.
here are
And,
stupid.
I'm from Jersey. Of course I know crime and networks and all that stuff. Really ridiculous, ridiculous.
I have
But
a brain in my
it-
head that's not smooth.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I need.
It's got, facets here, people. And you know what? I do
Exactly.
understand it takes all three parts, and you should too. And that you
Mhm.
can keep your gun if you would just have the conversation. You could keep your gun
Absolutely.
if you could have the conversation about how to protect the rest of the country. But if you keep going down this line, that's when it's going to get really strict. And then all that stuff you're afraid of, not having your gun and your ability to protect yourself, if you don't prove yourself to be a reasonable individual that can have the conversation and work for the greater good of the people, that's when
Mhm.
it's going to get messy. That's what you're going for. You're actually,
Absolutely.
the thing you fear, you're putting in place with your arrogance and ignorance. Do you see that? Do you see that?
Exactly. They can't see that. And before I get to the hands up, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to grab these two super chats.
Yes,
We got
please.
one. Sure. We got one from Gwen Moon for Australian $2. It doesn't have a message, but if there's anything you'd like us to highlight in the chat, that would be brilliant. Thank you so much for your support. And we also got another one for 10 Australian dollars from P. Barnes, who says, I always get concerned preaching to Americans. Our changes to gun laws have saved countless lives. There were more accidental gun deaths in the U.S. in 2020 than the total here in Australia. Thank you so
Wow.
much, P.
Thank
Barnes.
you for
That's amazing.
And that is what we were talking about with the actual statistics, and that's the stuff we have to face. And don't be afraid to talk to these Americans up here. Like, we'll hear you.
We'll hear you. We'll
Bring
listen
up.
to you. We
Yeah.
want to hear what you have to say.
We want that
I-
change. We want to know how you did it. I remember one of the first conversations I had on a pub chat with DK was about, please tell me how you guys did it because I know it's wrong here. Like, you don't have to tell me. Like, tell me, please. How couldn't we do it? Because I really wanted to
Absolutely.
change.
I do too. I would love to see change. We've had some excellent comments in the chat too, which have been very good. So, Commander, go ahead, and then I'll get to you, DKG.
Just one thing about, I think what part of this is, we've all seen it at the Shills, oppositional defiance disorder, being contrarian just for the sake of it. Now, I want someone to figure out how this is going to go. Like, there's rhetoric that if someone wants background checks or certain kinds of weapons banned, that they're automatically communists and socialists and Marxists, this, that, or the other. So you gaslight yourself into thinking that everyone is out to get you. So you arm yourself and you become crazier. And then I think a lot of these mass shootings exploded shortly after, in 2021, the statistics, they just went nuts. Now, the more hatred, the more violence, the more everything that you do means more people want to stop it. And you dig in more, you're going to eventually bring society down on you. And then when you go nuts and you start your little revolution, you can't stand up to the federal government. So you're going to wind up creating the situation that you say you want to avoid. I think I got that out, right?
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Exactly. Did you have something you wanted to bring up too, DKG?
Well, it's kind of got lost in the way a little bit, but I tend to repeat myself anyway. There's a couple of things. I mean, I watch these there's channels about car repairs and garages, and it's just called like Just Rolled In or whatever. The car comes in for repair, and I only see this happening in American shows where they're doing this. Is the amount of times where cars come in, it's not working because the wire harness is not working, or the petrol tank is leaking, or the radiator's leaking, and they're pulling bullets out of the car. The driver doesn't even know that their car has been shot at. And it happens almost on a weekly basis. You keep seeing these videos. I find that astonishing. And the other thing I was going to bring up earlier, you were talking about the NRA. Well, I think it's about time the NRA changed their slogan. And I think there should be a big, strong American company should come forward with a slogan, it's Nerf or nothing.
Good one.
I love Nerf guns. Those are fun.
Me
My
too.
son-
Yeah.
See the one.
Yeah,
I've got a
let's-
massive one.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's see.
Ones with
Yeah,
that
we'll just swap all your guns in America for Nerf guns. You're fine. You still get a gun. You still get the fun. So there you
Absolutely.
go. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm so glad we outlawed leaded gasoline when we did. If we
Mhm.
tried to have to do
Took
it
too long.
today, people would just be chugging tetraethyl lead as a protest.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
we have a great super chat from Stephen Welch for 30 American dollars, says universal gun checks and waiting period is a good policy.
Ask
Yes.
a Canadian.
it
I
is.
agree.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
working, right? A
And it
5% rate
universal.
over there. It's working.
It's
That's it.
working.
I should
And we
point
should
out
have
that
that.
Stephen Walsh is doing very amazingly on the super chats tonight. So we thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Indeed.
Just a few more, you get the free Shills gun.
And apparently here in America, if you're here, it'll be unregulated and you can have it and do whatever you want with it too.
Yeah. Up in Canada, it's a Nerf, but in the States, fuck, we got an AR-15 waiting for you, buddy. No worries.
Yes, they do, but it's not universal. It is
Mhm.
federal. It's not considered universal because there are loopholes.
Mhm.
So, and the waiting periods should also be universal. That's the way I feel about it too. And yes, there should be more comprehensive checks than what we have. I mean, they're
Mhm.
just,
Oh, yeah.
if I walk up to some Joe Blow on the street who's selling me a gun, I can go ahead and do that with no checks whatsoever.
Mhm.
What the fuck? So any old nutter who wants to do any harm to anybody else can just walk up, if somebody's selling a gun personally, they can just walk up and buy a gun or trade it for a four-wheeler I saw the other day.
Mhm.
What the fuck? I'm going to
Mhm.
keep saying that until we fix that. What the
Yeah.
fuck is right? Because if somebody can just go up to someone and buy something or trade something for a gun with no background check, really? And then you're complaining because regulations? No. Try again, please.
I like William. He said that the Shills gun, it comes preloaded, but you can't fire it unless by committee approval. That would be a good
Have to
thing because
ask
it
your
would
mother
never get
first.
fired. If you tried to get any of the Shills degree about anything
Oh,
ever,
fuck. No.
Good luck with that. It'll never fire.
I've
would
been here
never
for
be
how many
fired.
years? And
It would take you a month just to get us all together to actually have a vote on something.
Exactly.
That's ridiculous.
It would be
wait a
bullshit.
minute, Matt needs me by. No.
And we voted on Tuesday, and everybody shows up on Friday and Saturday and Monday, like for all over. Yeah, it would be great.
Oh, yeah.
Like the record of the
Good luck
Hesperus.
with
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
I tried that. Doesn't work.
No, yeah.
I don't know, Chris Durham. He asked me, why is it Joe Blow is always doing the most questionable stuff?
Yeah, with a name like that, you'd think he'd be too busy for other shit.
Yeah. Mm.
Exactly.
Uh,
But yeah, it's but yeah, I think these are valid questions to have. If I can go up to somebody and just buy a gun and then just walk off with it because it's a personal sale and that nobody wants to regulate that, do you not see that as a problem? So like say tomorrow if I just get we have an issue with impulse control in our house. So we can just say if I just get on a whim decide to go buy one, I can do that. I can go right up to someone who's selling one. Hey, you got a gun for sale? Cool. I'll give you this much for it. I make an offer. They accept it. I hand over the money. They hand me the gun. That's it.
And
That's it.
I'm pretty sure they don't even require a change of the registration of the gun.
Nope, they don't. I can just go and get it.
That's ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I
have,
can go the next day and shoot whatever I want to.
yeah, we're
Because
lucky our gun
yeah.
laws over here are so different now.
Mhm.
After the Port Arthur mass shooting, it changed, and we've just last year, we have over the years since then had quite a few gun buyback schemes, but they've just put a permanent one in where it's basically you can take any old gun into the police station and they won't arrest you or anything. It's
Yep.
you know, if you take it in, no questions asked, blah blah. So people that get, inherit these old bloody muskets and shit, they just take them in. They get a price, that has been set, and they get cash for them. So hey, they're happy. But unfortunately, we are a country.
Most of those muskets will probably blow up in your face if you try to use them anyway.
Well, exactly. But all the metal bits get melted down and reused in the steel industry. So
There we
they're
go.
all recycled. So yeah, it's quite awesome.
Yeah. You do still get to have some guns, though, right? I mean, it's
Oh,
voluntarily
yeah.
they turned them in. It's just regulated very well.
Yeah,
We-
no, there's no automatic or semi-automatics. The only time you have those is if you're in a gun club, and there are very strict rules as to how to lock them up, where the storage and where your where your bullets are stored. They're never stored together and all that sort of stuff.
Right. So there's just
yeah.
reasonableness. Nobody's taking everything
Yeah.
away, which
And
is
obviously
admirable.
our farmers all have shotguns and shit like that as
Yeah.
well, obviously. But yeah, average person on the street, no. Don't
I
have
would like to
guns.
counter that with this. Here's why I think America is being unreasonable. Because there was legislation put forward in like a state like New York, I believe it was, and they said that you shouldn't have a concealed weapon when going into an event like a stadium or a mall or anything like that. No concealed weapons. Okay, that should be no. So the Supreme Court said that was a violation of gun holders' rights and overturned it and won't let the law go through. That's unreasonable. We're talking about safety of people. Like, why do you have to have a concealed weapon when you walk?
Why do you have to have one in there?
Right,
wish
you have to
someone
have a
would
weapon
explain
to
that to
start
me.
with.
What are you so worried about? All right, first of all, you don't want regulation that says that we know you have a gun. You want that gun so damn bad, but you don't want us to know you got it, okay? And then you want to be able to conceal it and going into mass places where lots of people are, that they have rights too, to breathe the next day, but you're allowed to go in there with a concealed weapon.
Right.
But you don't want us to think that you're trying to commit a crime or going to do something nefarious. Like, you don't want to be open and transparent
What
about
fishy
it.
is going on here?
Did you guys see the comment in the chat from Who Dat Dragon member as well? Thank you very much. Awesome. Our crazy Texas governor signed a constitutional carry, i.e., anyone can carry with no permit or training. All Texas law enforcement begged him not to sign it. Made no difference.
Wow.
What the hell? How could you unleash the Wild West on your people in 2023? What the fuck is going on?
These people are
George
chewing on
W.
paint chips.
George W. Bush actually thought that was stupid. The king of low IQ presidents out before Trump thought that was stupid.
Ouch.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you can just walk into a Walmart and buy a gun, Amy, but you can't buy anything to self-pleasure yourself in there. It's ridiculous.
And they whine about birth control all the time.
I know. You can have 50 guns in Texas, but you could only have 6 vibrators. So they're going to come get you. Yeah. They'll regulate. I'm telling you, that's how ridiculous is this argument. They will regulate the vibrators, but they won't put gun control in place. Reasonable gun control. Come on, people.
Well, I have seen some shampoo.
Explain that
some
to me.
interesting takes.
Well, you can't have an abortion, but
Explain
hell,
that
you can
to me.
shoot her in the head if you want.
Exactly.
What
Explain this.
I'm sorry.
Explain
Go ahead.
this regulation to me, please. I want
Mhm.
to hear from the people who think that this is
Well, ask
okay.
Ted Cruz. He's the one that put that 6 vibrator law in place. Yeah. Way to go, Texas. Yeah, you really
Exactly.
got the thing.
Explain that, and
Yeah.
all of these people are complaining about freedoms. Explain that
Mhm.
one to me. Explain
yeah.
nobody can have more than, what am I going to go out and do with that vibrator? Am I going to go throw it at
Mhm.
somebody's head and somebody's just going to have a little bit of a.
Exactly. I might get too damn happy and they won't like that, huh, Aimee? Like I just might be a pleasant person for a while.
What
like,
are you going to get? One that you pull a dagger
Okay,
out
it was
of?
just a
Or
troll.
something?
Thank you.
exactly.
Do you
They're
know
so
what I-
damn dangerous. Yeah.
A dildo dagger. How does that?
I don't
No,
know.
the-
but
it-
it's
Rip
dead.
a dagger out.
It's alluded to in the chat. It's because guns can be reloaded faster than your average man. That's why they're allowed, not the toys.
See, I knew it. It's all about teeny peeny energy. I knew it. But on your point, Dick, you did mention this pro-choice, pro-life controversy thing. I want to know why the pro-life issue stops there.
I don't get it either. That's why I made the comment, because it's ridiculous.
Yo, conservatives, could you answer me, please? Why does it stop right there? The pro-life stops right there at birth. You don't give a shit about anybody that actually gets born, do you?
Well, it's
Yeah.
like paper, scissors, stone.
Because
You know,
you
that
can
game,
get
paper,
shot. Who
scissors,
gives
stone,
a
'cause
fuck?
guns are outdo babies.
Yeah, exactly. I
Who
wonder if
cares
we
when
made
they're
them
born?
if we made them choose, what would they choose?
So the idiot
I'm so
that
sorry, who
shoots a
dat?
pregnant woman, does he get double murder? Does he
Must.
get
In
charged with
that
double
case,
murder?
probably should. If he intended to kill her and why not charge in that case? But
Well, if she's not allowed to get an abortion, he's
Mhm.
just killed her and the baby. So
sadly, someone shot a woman in Louisiana, and because of their dumbass laws, they actually tried her for the death of the baby when she was shot. How fucked is that? That someone shoots you, you miscarry, and you're the one who gets in trouble.
Wow.
Exactly. Miscarriages happen all the time, sadly, and they're going to investigate every single one.
Yeah, that's like a violation, though. To even know you had it is a violation of HIPAA. That's your personal medical business, whether you were pregnant or not. That's like way going too far, big brother.
Exactly.
So,
Ignorant.
every non-American here.
But before we
do
get
you-
into
do-
that,
do-
I have to grab this super chat really fast. It's from Stephen Walsh. Thank you extra so much. That's amazing. $100 American muskets and SMLE and stens. There are strict rules for mine. Keep them in pieces. Thank you so much.
totally agree too.
Yeah.
They can't do anything.
No,
Right.
no. Before we go anywhere, because that's a perfect moment for this little video that was sent in. This was sent in by a viewer. I'd have to go and look.
I think, was it Tony? Because he sent quite a few in there.
He did,
No,
and I tried to put some in
MC
the green room.
MC Record?
No,
New Zealand?
fuck, I don't know. I can't because I don't want to just drag on about that. Sorry.
Well,
Give
thank
us a
you,
shout
whoever.
if you sent this in, but check this out. That kid's got a pistol.
What? You see?
That's a baby.
Now, that's a
Explain
baby.
this to me.
Okay, why are those parents? Why is that baby still in the custody of those parents? Like, if they are, and why isn't something like that should be
Why is
strict?
that okay?
Who's filming this?
Regulated.
Grabbing the damn
Yeah,
thing.
Who the fuck's filming it?
Right?
Exactly.
Who's watching this? That's why I think maybe it's like it must not be loaded or something. They couldn't possibly be watching that, and that kind of danger.
It's okay.
Well, I shouldn't
think
say
that
they
was
couldn't.
like a doorbell camera or something.
I think so.
Yeah, it
It's
could be.
focusing on his movement.
Oh, a ring
I
cam. They
really
said, yeah.
hate to let you know, but that was in Australia because that was our 9 News.
Oh, it was. Okay, so that was a security camera from somebody's building showing that. So somebody wasn't, thankfully, somebody wasn't holding the camera because I was about to lose my mind. Like, oh,
No, they
man.
posted, 9 News posted this, but it clearly says disturbing vision has emerged of a toddler walking around
Good.
with a loaded handgun in the U.S.
Okay.
The US thing. So that
Okay.
would
It was
be in
Tony,
my
thank you.
news. Yeah,
Yeah, I
maybe
thought it
Tony
was
is
Tony.
reporting on
Thank
it.
you,
That's
Tony.
okay then.
How
Mhm.
how many
Freaked me out there for a minute.
Canadians? How many Canadians, Australian citizens, and people from the UK want to come here and enjoy the freedom to be able to mow 30 people down in 10 seconds?
Good question. But before we get to that, we have another super chat. Thank you so much, Dave Cernick. Canadian $5 says, I'm new here. Love your content. Thank you so very much. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Dave. Welcome. Hope you like what you see and stick around.
Exactly. Thank you so much. That baby had beef with the babysitter.
Yeah. Oh, Tony,
But
further update from Tony there. The father was arrested.
Excellent.
Thankfully,
Thank you.
yes, he should be.
He should
And
be.
his
They
guns
should be held
taken
responsible.
away. He just proved he doesn't know how to store them or properly have respect for them and what they can do to other human life.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Are you talking about babies or guns?
No. What?
Probably both with the father. I mean, if that
True.
wouldn't happen, I'm sure the kid, right,
We
Don't
do
know how to
actually have
store a
regulations
baby
on how
properly.
you store your children, like the access to guns and all that. He should be penalized for that. I bet you the CPS has an issue with him right now too. So hopefully that'll
I
happen.
think so.
Yeah.
Well, they did with the couple in West Bath that happened too. They got charged for that.
Yeah.
Because the handgun was just laying out,
It
and the child got it and
That's a
shot them.
horrific thought. Oh my God.
It is.
Children and
there's the
guns, that doesn't
6-year-old
mix.
No, it doesn't. And there was the 6-year-old in the autistic Shill is saying about in Virginia that shot his teacher. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Stephen Walsh. 50 American dollars. Super effective. I love that. Thank you so much. It's a little game controller. That's cute.
That's the first
Thank
time I
you.
ever saw that one. It's awesome. Thanks,
That's
Steven.
cute. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
It's really,
That's
really
cute.
cute. I'm curious as to what the sentence was like that, like to see whether it's not strict enough. These things are happening because it's really not strict enough. Like there's no
Exactly.
real accountability for this kind of, accidental stuff.
Exactly. And then and Mark says when he was 8 he had his own Ruger 1022 rifle, but I'd been educated about firearms for years before that. Well, I used to shoot too. I was just saying that right at the very beginning of this show. So people are calling me this anti-gun liberal. I mean, excuse me.
Mhm.
So, I'd been shooting since I was 5, but my father was always with me. My mother always stood right beside it, and she was the one who panicked more than I do about guns. And I was able to shoot a BB gun at the age of 5. Yeah, exactly. That baby was 4, and obviously was all by himself. What would a baby need with a gun? It's just that's crazy. So to say that I'm all these these stereotypes that you think of people who might lean left, you're wrong. I just want sensible regulation so that I can send my son to school and not be frightened about what's going to happen to him. Is that so much to ask?
See, the thing is, I lean a little bit onto the right as well, Aimee. But the thing is, most people on the right want the same thing. Most normal people do not want to see their children being shot in schools. It doesn't even become a political issue, does it?
It's a parental issue. It's something that parents are concerned about.
In politics, it becomes a political issue with people on the right, who are not pro-gun legislation or whatever. But generally, your people don't want to be shot.
No, they don't. Saint Skanderberg says educating your kids at a young age about gun safety is very important, but it's not always my kid I have to worry about. I do worry about sending him to school because someone else will come to the school. It's like driving. You don't worry about yourself driving so much as you do about the other idiot on the road. And that's true. Mass shooters don't care about political leanings when they shoot people. They don't know who they're shooting. And that's an issue that's been brought up thousands of times before. You don't know the person in front of you. You're not RoboCop. You cannot see what their records are. You can't see who they are. You don't know the type of person they are. And so to say these things is really rather silly when they bring things up like that kid in Wisconsin, was it? And who was during the protests was freed because of self-defense.
Right. Yeah. That's
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How did he know who these people were? And within, you can't know that. So that argument doesn't fly with me either. It's just that I just want to be able to send my child to school or to be able to reasonably go out and do anything without being shot at or having to run the risk of being shot at.
Right. I think you're talking about the Rittenhouse case, right?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that is one that unfortunately the media did interfere by only putting clips of videos out, so you couldn't see until you actually saw the actual trial with the whole video of who was coming at him and
Thank
what
you.
was going. It wasn't put out there, but the media responded in
It was still
a manipulative
stupid.
kind of way. It was dumb, okay, but technically, this is what's the problem with gun control. He didn't do anything illegal in carrying that gun and what he did.
It was.
He didn't do anything illegal. Is regardless of how we're all upset about it and we made a big trial about it, the gun laws that we have were not sufficient enough to prevent that kind of stupidity from happening. Period.
And for
Well,
those
right.
who don't know, he traveled across state lines with a gun that wasn't his to
Underage.
go to underage, to go to a protest, to try
But-
to be the law.
Yeah, but here's the thing: he was underage in one state, but not the other state. If you actually look at it legally, I'm serious. He did not break any law. That's why he's not guilty.
Well,
Because
exactly. And
the
no
gun laws
problem with
don't
that.
go from state to state.
Right.
Okay.
And there's no
And-
problem with that. It's, and I had no problem with that whatsoever. My problem was with their argument saying, well, he shot these guys who were such and
Right.
such, and they were these terrible people. You can't know that
You don't know that.
those
People
moments
are
like that.
people.
Nobody can.
Yeah,
Exactly. And
because,
that's just a silly argument. And that's what I wanted to nip in the bud before it even happened tonight, because I've seen it
Exactly.
too many times.
Exactly. But it was a terrible situation all around.
It was.
And
It was
misunderstood
terrible.
and
Shouldn't have
badly
happened.
portrayed by the media. And everybody picked an issue in regards to that case and just flew with it, just one part of it, instead of looking at the whole thing. And the left, the right, people on both sides of gun control were just using that erroneously. They were all wrong, because you can't make a law in one state and enforce it in the other state. You can't. That's why I say it's got to be federal. It's got to be universal. And that's why when you're telling me that gun control bans don't work because certain cities had them or certain states had them, and I said, yeah, you're right, because everybody's not on the same page. It's never going to work. The criminal element and those that want to make it not work will always succeed unless we're united in it. Period.
Right. Who's saying we're going on? Okay, don't commit a violent crime and Americans won't have to shoot you. Simple as that. Love each other and be kind. And I understand that. That's a great sentiment.
Except for how do you explain mass shootings of hundreds of dead people? 40 mass shootings just in January of innocent people that were not armed and were minding their own business when they got shot dead.
Exactly.
How did children commit crimes that got shot this year?
Exactly. What did the teacher do to commit a crime?
Exactly.
Violent rioters were chasing him, putting out, and no, we're not saying that it wasn't. He was completely. You say he's completely justified, and that's fine.
No, didn't say justified. Said he didn't commit a legal crime and could not be committed as guilty because there was no legal precedent to put him in jail for it. Nobody said that what happened was cool. That's not
it wasn't
what was
cool,
said.
But it's right. But what we're saying here is, like, when I read that comment, he said, the violent rioters chasing him, put out a fire. They set, by the way, and the guy he shot in the arm was drawing a gun on him. He was completely justified. Fine. That's, that's your opinion. That's your argument. That's valid. But what I was saying earlier was just the argument that these guys they knew about these guys' histories, of course, after the fact, after these shootings happened, and I've seen it come up before where, these guys are just like, well, these guys were pedophiles and these guys were that, this and the other thing. And now, but yeah, okay. But there's my son in the background. And we have another super chat. And it's from Stephen Walsh. Thank you so much. We so appreciate it. Anyone watch The Devil's Brigade? That's a good film to discipline on guns, and that's for American $10. Thank you so much, Stephen. Haven't seen that yet.
I'm going to add that
check
to
it
my
out.
watch list, and
Absolutely.
I want to learn.
Absolutely, I do too. And I'm always willing to learn. I'm very happy to learn. That's one of my biggest things is, if you don't learn something new every day, is something, it was a wasted day. So yeah, I agree. So absolutely.
And you can never tell what kind of person someone is or what they've done. So when you're assuming, like me, you can think that I never shot a gun or I never hunted or whatever. I had a friend who took us out when we were like between 7 and 15 out in the Everglades to hunt gators, though I think it was illegal.
Absolutely. So that was, we didn't even get to our other topics tonight, but that
we actually,
okay.
This
one was just such a big
another
one.
week. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we should. And yeah, that way we'll have something for another week. And I'm sure we'll have better updates on those other topics that we were going to bring up to. Sorry, everyone. But yeah, so I do want to thank everyone in the chat for coming. And I do want to thank everyone for the conversation. And no, that's perfectly fine, St. Skanderberg. I don't blame you for not feeling sorry for him, but he did not know that at the time of it happening. That's the only thing I'm saying is that, he can't know who these people are at the exact time that this is happening. That's my only thing that I have a problem with. Some of the arguments are, yeah, we still have thefts in our neighborhood and a lot of people are armed in ours. So it's just a, there we go. Won't get into that because we got to go. Sorry about that. But I do want to thank everyone in the chat for coming. I do want to thank you so much for the conversation. We appreciate it. I want to thank everyone in the chat for coming as well. Thank you so much, for doing these shows with me and hanging out with all of us and getting all of this information out there because we want to have everybody learn too. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope you all have a great evening. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night out there, everybody. Gun control isn't a bad thing.
It's over. Go home. Go.